It seems to me that it's a three-team race for the 1 seed, and the 1 seed is crucial. It is crucial.
For me, it's about, have you been in these situations before?
We know going into every game that it's going to be a big game. We're going to do whatever we need to do to win.
And the Chiefs will second, Colin Saunders.
How about that ad-lib by Patrick Mahomes?
This is a very, very good team. We got to go out and make sure that we're executing on all phases.
Fires it at the back of the end zone. Caught. Juju Smith-Schuster. Touchdown. Kansas City.
I know everybody will be there in red and ready to go on Christmas Eve. No better place to be.
The Chiefs locked up a 7th straight division title last week with a win over the Texans. And now back at home for the first time in nearly a month, it's a classic football weather kind of day as the Chiefs and Seahawks clash for a cross-conference battle. We are 2 hours from kickoff. You've waited all week for this very moment. It's finally here. It is time for football in Chiefs Kingdom. Let's do this. My name is Matt McMullen, joined by voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. This is Field Pass presented by StorageMart. And Mitch, we'll start with the obvious. It's a cold one here today.
Something's happened that's never happened before. My energy drink froze. I was just holding it in my hand and it froze. It's cold.
Yeah.
And the wind chill's crazy. Seahawks dudes are crazy warming up without a shirt on, but here we are, huge game. They're fighting for their playoff lives, and we're still racing for a 1 seed.
Yeah, it's about 8 degrees down here on the field. We expect it to be around 15 degrees at kickoff, which will make this the coldest game the Chiefs have played in here at home since week 15 of the 2016 season. That was that game against the Titans where all the steam was coming off the field. It was like an eerie sight. It was only 1 degree that day, so it could be worse, right? But what are the impacts of cold weather on this game today, do you think?
Man, you start with special teams in the fact that a snap for a punt is 15 yards. A snap for a placement is 8 yards. Snapping it, holding it, kicking it. Think about teams in the shotgun. We run the shotgun, maybe 65, 70% of the time. The snap into Patrick's hands, getting the laces right, and then throwing what feels like an ice cube and catching an ice cube. It affects every facet of the game. So hyper concentration if you're the Chiefs because the Seattle team loves to take it away.
Yeah, the good news for the Chiefs in this game is you think cold weather, you think running the football, right? And the Chiefs have been running the football very well lately. Since week 10, the Chiefs have the 8th most rushing yards in the NFL, and they are 5th in rushing average during that span. Specifically, Isaiah Pacheco, what a second half of the season for him. He is 2nd in the NFL in rushing yards since week 10, behind only Josh Jacobs. Isaiah has a shot at 1,000 yards rushing this year, which is crazy to think about just a few weeks ago. He's only 323 yards shy of 1,000 on the season. He would need some big games here over the final 3 games of the season for the Chiefs, but between Isaiah and Jerick McKinnon, I think we're ready for a game like this.
Yeah, and I'm going to throw Ronald Jones the second in here. I think I know we mention him like every week. You saw his 22-yard flat pass against the Rams. You saw him, glimpses of him, a little bit here, a little bit there. This feels like a Ronald Jones the second. Hey, go out and get about 8 touches and hurt him. You mentioned Josh Jacobs. He had 303 scrimmage yards against the Seahawks. We're going to get into this in a minute, but if you've picked a team to run the ball against on a cold day, you've got the runners to do it if you're the Chiefs, and you found the opponent to do it against.
The Chiefs had 189 rushing yards last week that matched a season high, and you're so right. They have an opportunity to have a big day here again because the Seahawks run defense has struggled all year long. They've allowed the 2nd most rushing yards in the NFL this season. That includes at least 160 rushing yards allowed in each of their last 5 games. They've also allowed a bunch of explosive runs this year. There are 15 runs allowed of at least 20 yards, or the 2nd most in the NFL. The Chiefs have to take advantage of the Seahawks run defense here today.
Let's put it in perspective. You mentioned 5 games in a row where they've allowed 160 plus on the ground. If the Chiefs get 160 plus today on the ground, it will be the worst for an NFL team in that span since the 1995 Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
So it's there. Take care of the ball, block it, and you've got 3 Pro Bowlers of your 5 offensive linemen who love to block the run. I just saw Trey Smith before we went live here, and Trey's ready to go as well. But you've got guys that love to block the run, and you've got a Seattle team that struggles to stop it.
Now, Patrick Mahomes is just about impossible to stop, right? Well, when this running game is going, he is impossible to stop, and we saw that at times last week against Houston. Now, that was a weird game with the turnovers and the penalties. The flow of the game was weird, but he was spectacular in that game and deserves credit for how he played. He didn't have a single incompletion in the second half or overtime. He was legitimately perfect. He was 19 of 19 passing. That doesn't happen in the NFL. It all added up to his 9th 300-yard game of the season. That's the most in the NFL this year, and 3 more than second place. And he now has 35 touchdown passes on the season for his 4th career season. Why is that significant? Well, only 5 players in NFL history have 4 or more seasons with 35 touchdown passes. Who are those players? Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. They each have done it 6 times. And then Drew Brees and Peyton Manning each did it 4 times in their careers. We're talking about Hall of Famers here, and now add Patrick Mahomes to that group. And by the way, he's only been a starter for 5 seasons in the NFL, and he's done this 4 times. He continues to make the remarkable seam routine.
And if you look at 35 touchdown passes and 4,500 passing yards, only Tom Brady's done it, more than Patrick Mahomes.
Crazy.
And you mentioned 20 straight completions if you get the last completion of the first half. If Patrick Mahomes goes back to the elements here, but if he gets 6 straight completions in this game to start this game, it'll be an all-time National Football League record.
Incredible. He leads the NFL in touchdown passes with 35. That means he obviously also leads the AFC in touchdown passes, but we'll also see the NFC leader in touchdown passes here today, and Seahawks quarterback Geno Smith. And we've joked around about this all week long. If there was a movie script about Geno's season this year, it wouldn't be realistic. It would get thrown out, right? That's not real life, but this is real life for Geno Smith this year. Just a remarkable season for him. In his first season as a full-time starter since 2014, he leads the NFL in completion percentage. He ranks 2nd in passer rating, 4th in touchdown passes. Only Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Joe Burrow have more touchdown passes than Geno Smith this year. He has 11 games with multiple touchdown passes, that's most in the NFL, and 9 games with a passer rating north of 100, most in the NFL. To say that he's been remarkable this season is an understatement.
He is the NFL's Renaissance man, and nothing but respect throughout the hallways this week, especially from Andy Reid, who he mentioned he was an English major at West Virginia. Andy loved him when he interviewed him when he came out of West Virginia. But Geno Smith also, to look his completion percentage, but he was the best deep ball thrower in the league for much of the year. And it's really interesting. For 6 years, he only appeared in 15 games. And, Matt, none of those 15 were significant. Kneel downs, blowouts. And all of a sudden, poof, he becomes a great quarterback. Here's another historical note, though. And on the radio, I talk about deja vu. I'll get to the main reason of deja vu, but the other second part was the last time the AFC touchdown pass leader met the NFC touchdown pass leader this late in the season was 2018. It was the Seahawks against the Chiefs. It was Russell Wilson then against Patrick Mahomes in Seattle.
Wow. Geno's been amazing this year, as you mentioned. It has been a bit of a tale of 2 seasons, though, for this Seahawks squad. They started 6-3, looked like a lock for the playoffs, right? But they're only 1-4 in their last 5 games. So what are some of the reasons behind that recent slump? Well, for one thing, they've struggled with giveaways lately. Geno, in particular, has 7 turnovers in his last 5 games. That's more than he had all season combined until this recent stretch. So he's been turning the football over a bit more. And also the running game for this team has struggled lately, when that was a strength early in the season. So during their 6-3 start, Seattle was 7th in total rushing yards and 3rd in the NFL in rushing average. But during this 1-4 stretch, they're last in total rushing yards and 30th in rushing average. When you can't run the ball effectively, it puts a lot of pressure on Geno, and he's been pressing, I think, because of that.
No question, and they're having a hard time protecting Geno. You mentioned the giveaways. They have 11 lost fumbles. Only Indianapolis has more lost fumbles than the Seahawks. And also protection. This slump that they're in, Geno's been sacked 3+ times for 5 straight games. Wow. So it's been a really different in the beginning of the year, and I think it goes back to the run game you alluded to. When Kenneth Walker, the third, we'll see if he's active or not. They brought up Wayne Gallman late last night. He was on the Chiefs practice squad about just a couple weeks ago. But if Kenneth Walker, the third, can't play, it's an issue. His first 4 starts, he averaged 100 yards rushing. His last 4, 30 yards rushing. They're turning it over, not protecting, not running the ball. but this is still a team with a lot of pride, and they're playing for their playoff life.
Yeah, that's a great point. This team has struggled a lot recently, but still they're battling and fighting. They've done that all year long. They played with a ton of heart all season long. We saw it in week 1 when they welcomed Russell Wilson back to Seattle, right? Everyone thought Russell Wilson was going to get the last laugh when he went to Seattle for that game and the Broncos were going to win. Seattle said, no, we're winning this one. And really, they've been one of the stories of the NFL this year. And like you said, this will not be easy for the Chiefs today because they're fighting for their playoffs lives.
Some franchises, and we know the Chiefs have this, the Kingdom has this, a special pride. And the Seahawks have that. Think of the 12, right? We've seen their fans here. There's across the way here. This is a very prideful franchise. John Schneider, their GM, I respect a whole lot. Pete Carroll, their head coach. And then the core of their players are digging in. Okay, they still have Bryce Irvin. I mean, they got some guys that remember Legion of Doom. They're digging in today. And so this will be a hard game for the Chiefs to try to pull this off. But there's a lot at stake here in this cold field.
Yeah, this team has exceeded expectations all year long, been one of the stories of the NFL. At the core of that success is, of course, Geno Smith. And for more on Geno and his success this season, I caught up with Mina Kimes from ESPN earlier this week. All right, we're joined now by Mina Kimes from ESPN. And Mina, I want to ask you about Geno Smith because what a season for him. His first time as a full-time starter since 2014, and he's truly been one of the stories of the NFL. How do you explain Geno's success this year?
You know, it's been interesting because in some ways, Geno is flashing abilities, traits that we've seen at various points throughout his career. He has a very good arm. When he's been protected in the past, he has been accurate. He's also been an aggressive passer, attempting difficult throws. I think what's different this year and what was hard to predict is his play under pressure, first and foremost, and then the playmaking, the creation. Geno is not just operating within the structure of the Seahawks offense. He has, I think, flashed a second reaction ability that I didn't know he had. And it's been really impressive to see him create as a quarterback because that's not something that I foresaw coming into the season.
Yeah, he's been really solid, led the Seahawks to a 6-3 start, but just 1-4 in their last 5 games. Is there anything in particular that defenses have been doing against Geno lately that have found success against him?
Not really. I think Geno struggles, and the turnover is probably the biggest issue, although some of them haven't been his fault. Really just down from him pressing, and I think he has been pressing in large part because the Seahawks run game, their rushing attack, has been somewhat lackluster over the last few weeks. They are leaning on him to convert pretty difficult third downs, and as a result, I think you're seeing some struggles that maybe weren't there earlier in the season when the offense on early downs was a bit more efficient. Not having Tyler Lockett for any extended period of time will also make life harder for him. But don't overlook the Seahawks tight end group. They love to use them in their offense. Then, of course, DK Metcalf has been very good this season, and I like the matchup for him in this Chiefs game.
Yeah, it'll be a challenge for the Chiefs on Saturday. This Seahawks squad has fought all year long, and they're battling for their playoff lives right now. The good news for the Chiefs is their defense is feeling pretty good right now. Sure, there's some plays they'd like to have back in last week's game against Houston, but they really won the game for the Chiefs in the end. Frank Clark had the forced fumble, and Willie Gay recovered it, essentially won the game for the Chiefs. So we'll see if they can carry that momentum here into this one on what should be a chilly day in Kansas City. Mina, awesome stuff. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
All right, great stuff there from Mina Kimes. We'll get the inactives here in a few minutes, Mitch, but we already know a few things, right? So for one thing, we know tight end Jody Fortson's not going to play in this game here today with an elbow injury. You actually won't see him on the inactives because he was placed on injured reserve yesterday. So hopefully we'll get Jody back for the postseason, but a bit of a bummer not having Jody Fortson today.
Yeah, and it kind of changes things scheme-wise, but to get Blake Bell back is a positive. Remember, Blake has not played since like the first half or the first play of the second half of the first preseason game against Chicago when it was much warmer. But Blake brings you some extra power in the blocking game, brings some bulldozer into it, but I'm anxious to see what Blake Bell can do. The other thing is Blake Bell can be effective on special teams, even on kickoff return. He's back with Burton. You may see a key block made by him to spring Pacheco loose on a kickoff return.
Yeah, how about that? Welcome back, Blake. It's 6 degrees out here. Welcome back to
It's Wichita Bishop Carroll, man.
Yeah, right.
He knows about it.
He's a bulldozer. He's ready.
Yep.
Blake Bell was activated from injured reserve yesterday. A bit of housekeeping here. McCole Harbin was not activated yesterday. Hopefully McCole is back next week, but you won't see McCole on the inactives. He's still not going to play here today. He remains on injured reserve with that abdomen injury. Also, Danny Shelton may make his Chiefs debut here today. He was called up from the practice squad. We'll see if he's officially active here in just about a minute, but let's see what Danny Shelton can do today.
Danny Shelton has won a Super Bowl. Former New England Patriot. He's bounced around with some teams. Girth, big in the middle, but got to get some snaps. You have to have 4 down linemen rotating. It also tells me that very shortly we're going to hear Colin Saunders will be inactive today because of an illness. A lot of sickness has gone around the practice facility this week. Rick Burkhalter, Vice President for Performance and what's his title? I don't know.
Athletics training.
Yeah, there you go. But he's so good in helping guys get back and trying to prevent it. They have been on full alert this week and keeping guys healthy. But I don't think Colin Saunders will go, which means Danny Shelton's up. The other guy we talk about, Brandon Williams, the Missouri Southern Lion, right? You folks in Joplin remember him. He was the MIAA Defensive Player of the Year. Really good player for the Ravens. He's going to have a big role today. He was in the Shelton role earlier, like, oh, okay, throw him in there, see what he can do. Today he goes into the Colin Saunders role, and that means a whole lot more snaps, and they're going to need him, especially against the run game.
Yeah, Williams had a half sack against Denver just a few weeks ago, so some fresh legs there for the Chiefs' defensive line. You mentioned the bug going around in the locker room. Colin Saunders, because he's sick, he is doubtful for today's game. Defensive end Mike Dana, also sick. He's questionable. And safety Dion Bush, he is sick. He is questionable. So we're still waiting on the inactives. We'll see if those guys are going to go here in a moment. Briefly, let's talk about what we already know with the Seahawks inactives, and there's some big ones here for them. Notably, Tyler Lockett, former K-State alum, of course. He has a hand injury, is not going to play in this game. That's a huge deal. He leads this team in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns. Not having Tyler Lockett is a major deal for this team.
Tyler Lockett is one of the best route runners I've ever seen at any level. He was an All-American at K-State. I saw him triple-teamed and double-teamed all the time. But he and DK Metcalf together are one of the most powerful duos in the National Football League. It's a big part of Geno Smith, right?
Yeah.
And the air effect, 21 yards of air, the pass is going that far. But Tyler Lockett being out now takes you take the yin from the yang. So now you're going to be throwing fades to Metcalf, but you can throw any route to Tyler Lockett in any kind of weather. He'll catch it and he'll get open. And he wanted to be here. He's a local hero, right? His dad played here. And Tyler told us on the Chiefs Kingdom show Monday night, he goes, hey, he just went out of surgery 45 minutes ago. So that was like breaking news. But Tyler waited all year, actually all his career, to play here. He won't get to play today.
For any defense facing Seattle, it's really pick your poison with Lockett and DK Metcalf. But when Lockett can't go out there, you got to force DK Metcalf or someone other than DK Metcalf to beat you. And just a big deal not having Tyler Lockett for the Seattle offense. They're also missing some pretty significant players on defense. Notably, safety Ryan Neal is not going to play today with a knee injury. He's their starting strong safety. And if you look at Pro Football Focus grades, he's their highest graded defensive player this year. So Ryan Neal's not going to play. And also nose tackle Al Woods with an Achilles injury. He's not going to play here today for them. He's their third highest graded defensive player according to PFF. He started 12 games for this squad. Not having Neal and Woods is a big deal for a defense that's already struggled this season.
Let me tell you where it's at. We talk about this all the time. Injuries in the NFL are a factor. Sometimes they're almost insurmountable when they stack up at one spot. They lost Monet, their other nose tackle, to an ACL against San Francisco in that Thursday night game. They are down their top 2 nose tackles. They signed a guy off the street in just 2 days ago who may start at nose tackle for them.
Wow.
So they're missing their best tackler at safety. They're missing 2 nose tackles. Again, it goes back to hopefully running the ball against them today if you're the Chiefs.
Now, we officially have the inactives for the Chiefs, so let's look at these guys and see who's not going to play here today. Colin Saunders is indeed inactive for the Chiefs. No Colin Saunders today, but looks like Mike Dana and Dion Bush, who are both questionable coming in with that illness, they're going to give it a go. So good news having Dana and Bush here today.
Got to have them. Got to have Dana for rotation, and you got to have Bush for special teams. Keep in mind, a lot of starters play special teams. We'll talk about that on the radio broadcast after I bang the drum. But having those guys up is a bigger deal than you think. Bush is needed in four-core. Special teams may win this game today. It probably wins the game when the weather's this crazy.
We're going to talk about the drum here in a minute. Let's look at the Seattle inactives. So if you guys we were watching, running back Kenneth Walker was questionable coming in with an ankle and a back injury. Looks like Kenneth Walker is active here today. He's our leading rusher. Didn't practice all week. We'll see how he can do in this weather. Tight end Noah Fant, he was questionable coming in. He is active here today. He has a knee injury. We all know him from his time with Denver. He's third on this team in receiving yards. Didn't practice much this week, so we'll see what he can do. Number 11, Marquise Goodwin at wide receiver. He's active for them. He was hurt midweek, I believe. He was a full participant in practice on Tuesday, but limited on Wednesday. That's probably when he got hurt. Didn't practice on Thursday. We'll see what he can do. And then running back DJ Dallas, their backup running back. He was questionable coming in with an ankle injury. He is also active. Had a season-high 10 carries last week. So all four of their questionable guys are active in this game, but on a bitter cold day like this, let's see how effective they can be.
It tells you the sense of urgency the Seahawks are feeling. All of those guys were, and they put Wayne Gallman up last night as a late ad. I mentioned him earlier in the show, but he's now down. They want Dallas and Kenneth Walker III to play and Goodwin to play. Like, it's a call to arms for them. They realize they lose this game today, they're probably out of the playoffs.
Now, before we let everyone go, we got to talk about you a little bit. Mitch is going to be banging the drum here today before the game, and you're going to call the first couple drives from up on the deck, right?
Yeah. It's cold down here. How cold is it up there? I don't know, man, but I just figured this out. It's a huge honor. I've been emotional all week about it. But also got to tell you, maybe I was the only guy dumb enough to agree to do it. So it's Clark Hunt. Said last week, he goes, dude, do you know how cold it is up there? Because he's done 2 AFC championship games up there. I said, yeah, let's go. So anyway, it is an honor to represent the kingdom, to try to get this group fired up. It's a day you got to win. They're desperate. We need to get it to stay in the heat for the hunt for the 1 seed. So let's go.
Just thinking of heat, huh?
Heat. Give me heat.
Yeah.
You know what? You go to the pro shop to buy cool stuff, right? Then you go to buy practical stuff. These gloves are awesome, man. Yep. I love you. Picked them out. These are good.
Well, you deserve to be up there today. I'm so excited for you. Enjoy the moment. If you're up for that challenge, the Chiefs will be up for this challenge playing here today. So for Mitch, I'm Matt McMullen. Let's go get a victory.